Hey, it's a windy fall day here at Adams Field with offensive line coach Scott Wooster, and let's talk about that offensive line. First of all, a lot of depth this season.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for having me, Joe. I mean, I think the big thing about this year is, like you said, depth, some experience, and the big thing we talked about, though, opening this thing up, is a clean slate. You know, all that experience is great, all that hard work's great, but we got to go play some games. And we just talked about it the other day. Is here's a group that has never played together. These 5 guys have never been together, so I'm really excited, really interested more than anything in just seeing what these guys have for us come Saturdays.
Yeah, Thieker back.
Sure.
That's a huge guy to lose last season, a really big guy to get back, though, a preseason All-American. What does he do to an offensive line as a unit?
No doubt. I mean, he's a special football player, you know, size, strength, intelligence. He's got all that, but he's also a leader. Midway through his junior year, he became the bell cow. He became the guy, the leader of men. And everyone looks to that, you know. So when he was missing a year ago, there was a little void there. And now that he's back, especially with the other seniors that provide great leadership, you know, we've got a leadership, you know, no more void, you know, tons of leadership.
You know, a few years ago with Joe Long, we saw pro scouts out here all the time. I assume it's the same thing with
Yeah,
Nate.
Absolutely. You know, probably all 32 will be through by the end of the year, and I think they like him. You know, I think they like body type wise, explosiveness, and what type of football player he is. And then the big thing is what type of offense he plays in. You know, all these spread offenses aren't conducive to NFL offensive line development, and ours is, being in a pro-style offense, coming off the football and getting after guys. So,
now, not just him, but you have so much depth that you actually had to give up a few players to go play defense, or they weren't going to see the field.
Sure. Well, they were going to see the field, but it was just one of those things where it helps the football team, and those guys were unselfish and said, yeah, I'm going to go do it and help this football team. But you take Tommy Richardson, returning all-league guy, he's playing at extremely high level right now. JT Pillars is the center, and he doesn't get talked about much, but he's playing his best football, and he's just a tough-minded, tough kid that I'm excited as heck for, and you know, seeing what he's going to be as a senior. Robert Kelly, obviously our right guard, played a ton of football for us. He's playing his best football. Andy Zimmerman. Then we got some young guys. Justin Toxtein, Israel Helms. Alex Zetas is another senior that's playing well. Greg Weber. So yeah, we've got a lot of depth. A lot of guys can play at a championship level for us, and that's exciting, Joe.
Now let's talk about, you know, depth. You need it because of injuries, and injuries are a big deal in football, and in, gosh, the last 5-10 years, concussions has been a big topic.
Sure.
And I know you've been, over the last few years, researching things because, hey, linemen, they're hitting heads every play.
Sure.
So let's talk about that.
So much is getting brought up about concussions, and really some of the things that are going on in the NFL isn't necessarily concussions. It's CTE, and it's the repetitive subconcussive hits that's offensive line, linebacker, defensive line. So like you said, Joe, we've kind of taken a real active role in saying, let's make this game safer. And so we really made a wholesale change in what we're doing technique-wise now. Up front blocking, pass protection, run blocking, and getting the head out of it and getting those subconcussive hits. Now there's going to be contact, it's a violent game, but we're just going to lessen that, you know, and try to take some of that head out of there and using our hands more and more aggressively and more actively.
Where did you start as far as finding this information? And was it clinics? Was it other coaches?
Yeah,
how do you do this?
Absolutely. You know, on the clinic circuit, you go out there and you see some things different people are doing. But a lot of times it's just clinic speak. You know, people have this great idea. But then when you watch, and we watch a ton of NFL film in the off season, you get that Game Pass, watch a lot of other college film, and you start to see these techniques, and you're like, hey, this is something that's not just going to make our game safer, but it's extremely productive too. It increases our performance. We're better blockers with this stuff. So we got delved right into it and contacted the people, Jim McNally, Scott Peters, these guys that are working this stuff, and jumped on board, and our guys love it, you know, and I love coaching it.
Now, like you said, it's not hurting production. You know, that's one of the things.
Sure.
That's a fine line. You want to keep them safe. You want to win football games, and you want to open the holes for the running backs and protect the quarterback.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, and you got to do your job. You got to execute. You got to move people as an offensive line, and just using physics to our advantage, you know, and using some things that used to be this game was about brute strength and brute strength only. Well, you know, we got some really intelligent guys up front. I've got two. I got a civil engineer, got a mechanical engineer, got a Zetas is going to be a doctor. These guys are brilliant guys. They've taken the physics classes. They've taken calculus. Well, let's use it, and that's what we've been doing, is using torque instead of just brute horizontal drive, using some different forces that maybe haven't been utilized in the game of football, but they're extremely, extremely productive. And you know, you watch guys move now, we get a lot more movement, and we're not working as hard necessarily. And it's martial arts a little bit too, that concept, that idea.
All right, so we're talking about it.
Yeah.
kind of show me a little bit. What are we talking about that's different from what you usually do?
So when I was trained as an offensive lineman, maybe before my day it was shoulder and forearm, right? The forearm shiver. And then in 1983, we could use the hands. So everyone started going to the hand blocking. Well, it was a tripod. It was use the front part of your forehead basically in your two hands and horizontally drive a guy straight back. So you're getting that fit and you drive.
And I'm going back.
All right. So many things had to be right though. Your hips had to be lower. Your hands had to be inside. All right. But you're using that head necessarily as a weapon, as part of the block. And we said, now let's use, instead of just that horizontal drive, that everything had to go right and I had to be stronger than you, let's use vertical lift. All right, so if I take the top part of your body and separate it from the lower part of your body and lift that, now you don't have the power angle to fight my leverage, and I can take you and control you and take you wherever I want to go. All right, and then we also use a lot of this rotational force. We're talking about torque now. All right, so now I'm not even going to fight gravity with lift. I'm going to use rotational power, you've heard of centrifugal or centrifugal force, those type of things. All right, we're going to use that too, so we're not fighting gravity with lift. So just using some different ideas rather than just brute force and perfect leverage to move defenders.
So this is more arms, shoulders, and your base, and taking your head out of it?
No, it's hips. It's hips. It's really using my hips as my principal lever, playing long, so now my eyes are going up. So even if there is contact with my head, it's on the way up rather than directly
So when you're blocking me, you're just trying to get me back.
Absolutely. That old idea was shoot my hands, put my forehead in there. We called it a tripod and drive you back. Now it's use the hips to move, but vertically lift the guy to break him at the halfway point so he can't synergistically use his upper body with his lower body musculature. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you're going to take him off balance too, aren't you?
Exactly.
And that'll make it harder for him to reach the running back as he goes by you?
Sure, absolutely.
So all these things that's going to work better and keep the guys safer, there's no negative to this.
No, there's no negative to it. It's just it's a totally different mindset from an offensive line coach, because we've been taught our whole life what we did was go put our face into you and knock you back. Well, now let's get our hips going into you, control you, and move you where I want to move you. So it's really a discipline on my part to change the dogma of offensive line play.
Tell me this from your standpoint as a coach, from the time you started learning this,
Sure.
How long did it take for you to completely buy in and totally do it, and how much of an adjustment is that for you?
Yeah, there was quite a bit there, because, and then, we've got a head coach that wants to be physical and run the football, so there was a selling to him too, that's saying, hey, this is going to move people better than the old school way, and we're going to get just the same production, but we're going to keep our kids healthier and safer. And I think he had to see it a little bit. And one of the things this year was, okay, we got all these seniors. Well, they've been doing all the drills, the previous drills. Why change this year? But I think it's a talented group, it's a hungry group, it's a great group, and they were really sponges in absorbing it and learning it. So, yeah, there was a lot of that too, Joe. There's no question.
From a player standpoint, once they buy in and see it, just the health factor alone, just keeping them out of the training room and on the football field.
Oh my gosh! And hey, we're in this. I'm a dad now. I've got a 6-year-old at home. I'm coaching other people's sons. My job is to keep them healthy, and I want them to come back in 20 years with their kids, and we can have a conversation, and we can, walk the field, and we can be part of that. I also want to come back and donate some money to Wayne State football. All right, so that's part of it too. No, that's just a kind of little joking side, but they're young men, and they're going to be fathers, and they're going to be husbands, and let's protect them. Because I want the person coaching my daughter to do it the safest, best way possible down the road too.
And let's be honest, like you said, hey, this is a business too, and you've got to recruit. This is a recruiting tool, not just to the player, but to mom and dad.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a byproduct of it. And I hope parents see that. I hope the moms and dads and the kids see that we're talking about 5 years of your life playing college football, 4 or 5 years, but you're talking about 50 years. That's what this is really about, is the next 50 years, what that degree does for you. But you got a lifetime after playing college football. So let's be safer, let's be healthier. Let's have a great 50 years, not just a great 5 years.
Is this something you see down the road, that this generation of players, who knows how many of them, but some of them do become football coaches?
Absolutely.
This goes to the next one and the next one, and that this becomes the standard.
Sure, I definitely hope so. There's no question, because you look at what's going on in the NFL, and why not? If it's just as productive, why not? Where is the negative? Like you said before, Joe. Absolutely.
Yeah, and when you hear all the things and people, hey, concussions are a big deal. It's become huge.
Sure.
And the naysayers get into the, hey, football doesn't have long to last if it keeps going this way. There's always going to be a way. It's just you have to find these techniques,
yeah,
right?
and you have to evolve as a coach. I mean, football back, they were going to outlaw it because there was too many deaths.
Right.
Teddy Roosevelt, right? So we evolved. We became smarter. We did it a better way. Let's evolve, and that's what we're doing right now. We're evolving and finding a better way for our young men, for us as a football program.
Making the football team better and making them safer and healthier.
Absolutely.
All right. Offensive line coach Scott Wooster, going to be a physics teacher one of these days too.